Bok dobar dan. Well, that's the way we say hello in Croatia. Hello, children. How are you people doing? I'm Saurabh Kumar Dutt, and I'm here to teach you people a little bit of mathematics. Now, children, this fascinating place that you get to see is the Golden Horn Beach, also known as the Zlatni Rat in Bol, Croatia. It is here that the shape of the beach changes with the moving winds and the water currents. Pretty fascinating, isn't it? Now, do visit this fantastic place, have Breskwiz, the famous food round here, and also tell all the people of Croatia that you get to meet Bok dobar dan. In this note, children, I'm going to start off this lecture where today we'll be discussing about complex numbers. Now, whenever you get to see a number which is of the form of root of say minus 14, right, then it will be written as root of 14, which is going to be multiplied with root of minus 1. So within root, when you get a minus sign, right, then you talk about that sort of a number to be a complex number, right? Generally speaking, whenever we talk about a complex number, then that is of the form of a plus ib, right? That is, you have a binomial structure of a complex number, right? Now here, if we talk about a to be 0, then what will happen is you will just have ib, which is a complex number, where if you talk about I actually is root of minus 1. This I is actually the Greek alphabet iota, which represents the complex number, and its value is root of minus 1, right? So like I told you, if a be 0, then this number will be purely imaginary, and if say b be 0, then the number will be purely real, right? So if we talk about these two values, that is 1a and the second b, then both of these are from the set of real numbers. You could remember this. And further, one thing more, if you talk about a, what is a? A is known as the real part, right? And if we talk about this b, b is the imaginary part. Okay, so both of these things that I told you just now, I'll just quickly discuss. Here, if you talk about a number which is of the form of root of minus 14, it actually can be written as root of 14 times the root of minus 1, right? This root of minus 1 is I, which represents the complex number or the imaginary number, right? It is represented by the Greek alphabet iota. Generally speaking, whenever we talk about a complex number, we can write it as a plus ib, where a and b both are from the set of real numbers, right? A being known as the real part and b being known as the imaginary part, right? So this is what a complex number is. Now next we look up the powers of I. Obviously, if you talk about I, that means that it is I raised to the power 1, right? And if you talk about I raised to the power 2, then that can be written as I, which is going to be multiplied with I. And further, obviously, that can be written as root of minus 1, which is the value of I, which is going to be multiplied with root of minus 1. And here thus what will happen is we will have this to be minus 1, which is raised to the power minus 2, and as it has come twice in multiplication, so obviously its whole power can be written to be 2. So as you people know that if you have some a raised to the power m, right, which is whole raised to the power n, then that is written as a raised to the power m into n. So here too we can write this as minus 1, whose whole power is 1 upon 2, and further its whole power is 2. So both of these numbers will get cancelled, as such only minus 1 will remain. And thus you can remember that whenever you talk about I squared, that becomes equal to minus 1. Nextly, if we talk about I raised to the power 3, then that can be written as I square, which is going to be multiplied with I, right? And as I square has already been looked up to be minus 1, it will be multiplied with I, as such it will become equal to minus I, right? And next, if say we talk about I raised to the power 4, thus we can write it to be I square, which is going to be multiplied with I square. And since the value of I square is minus 1, so minus 1 will be multiplied with minus 1, and their product will give you 1, right? And thus here we have these values, that is I obviously is going to be written as I square is going to be minus 1, I cube is minus I, and I raised to the power 4 is 1. So these are few values which you will use again and again, especially in sums which have to do with powers of I. So I'll just quickly discuss here. Whenever you talk about I, it is the same as I raised to the power 1. If you talk about I square, right, I into I is how it can be written, as I is root of minus 1. When multiplied with root of minus 1, right, we can write this as minus 1 raised to the power 1 upon 2, that is this power of being square root, and then further, as it has come twice in multiplication, so the whole power will become equal to 2. Now, since a raised to the power m whole raised to the power n is given by a raised to the power m into n, as such, this will be minus 1 raised to the power 1 upon 2, which will be multiplied with 2. Both of these numbers being identical will get cancelled. As such, you will just be left out with minus 1 raised to the power 1, or just minus 1. So as such, I square becomes equal to minus 1. Now when you talk about I cube, that can be written as I square into I. Why so? Because if, say, we talk about, say, some a raised to the power m plus n, that can be written as a raised to the power m, which is multiplied with a raised to the power n, right? And I square into I actually means I raised to the power 2 into I raised to the power 1, and the powers getting added, keeping the base to be the same, it became I cube. And thus here I square, which has a value of minus 1, gets multiplied with I. Thus this value of I cube becomes equal to minus I. Now when we talk about I raised to the power 4, that is actually I raised to the power 2 multiplied with I raised to the power 2, and we know that I raised to the power 2 has a value of minus 1. So minus 1 into minus 1 is what we get. Minus minus will become equal to plus. 1 into 1 becomes equal to 1. As such, I raised to the power 4 has a value of 1. Now children, we'll be looking up certain sums which use powers of I. So this sum is the one that I'd like you people to try. I'll give you some 10 seconds for trial, after which I'll be discussing the sum with you people. If you think you can try it harder, taking a longer period of time, then you can pause the lecture and give it a good try. Okay, so children, here remember that this is a sum where you have some power of I, right? And it is there in an expression, and you got to solve and simplify this to get a single result. Do remember that whenever we have such sort of expressions, we'll be using the different powers of I that we just studied, that is I square, I cube, and I raised to the power 4. So somehow or the other, we will try and convert it in those values of I. So when we talk about this sum, we first are going to write these numbers in that format. That is, if you talk about I raised to the power 18, which is a positive higher power more than 4, then what we do is we break it up into a smaller power, which is a multiple of 4, and to that we add as much number there is. So obviously this can be written as I raised to the power 16, to which we are going to add 2, because 16 plus 2 will give us 18, and 16 is actually a multiple of 4, right? Further then children, in the next step we have here 1 upon I, right? So as you know that whenever we have a number which is there in the denominator, right, when it comes over to the numerator, its power becomes a minus 1. So as such, similarly, we can write this as I raised to the power minus 1, and its whole power is 25, and then the whole power of this sum of two expressions in I is 3. So further here, we can write this as I raised to the power 4, which is whole raised to the power 4, and it gets multiplied with I raised to the power 2. Again here, what rule are we using? If you talk about a raised to the power m plus n, then that becomes equal to a raised to the power m, which is multiplied with a raised to the power n, right? And thus this has been written here as I raised to the power 4 is 1 children. So here we have 1, which is raised to the power 4, and with that is multiplied I square, whose value is minus 1. So 1 raised to any power will always be 1, thus their product becomes equal to minus 1, right, which is the value of I raised to the power 18. Now to this is added I raised to the power minus 1 raised to the power 25, and here children, we know this, that if we talk about a raised to the power m, which is whole raised to the power n, then that becomes equal to a raised to the power m into n. So here too, both of these powers are going to get multiplied, so this will become I raised to the power minus 25, right? And the whole power of this is 3, so as such, we'll write the whole power to be 3 here. Now in the next step, what we can do here is, whenever we have a higher power of I more than minus 4, right, obviously going in the negative side, so it can be said to be lesser than minus 4, then we've got to write it as a higher power of I, and to that is going to be added a positive number. So here thus, as we know that if we talk about 28, then that will be a power of I, which is going to be a multiple of 4. So what we do here is we're going to write this as I raised to the power minus 28, and since here to get to minus 28 we added minus 3, so as such we will also subtract minus 3, and thus we will have plus 3 here, right? So when you add minus 3, then obviously here we'll have minus 25 minus 3, and when you subtract minus 3, then minus minus will become equal to plus, and that is why we have plus 3 here, and the whole power of this is 3. So for the children, in the next step we can write this as I raised to the power minus 28, to which is multiplied I raised to the power 3. And again we've been able to get this because this is I raised to the power m plus n, which can be written as a raised to the power m into a raised to the power n. Now remember children, the whole power of this is 3, as such we'll keep writing that. Now in the next step what we do is we can now write this minus 1, and I raised to the power minus 28 can be written as I raised to the power 4, whose whole power is minus 7, and it is multiplied with I cube, which you remember as minus I, right? And the whole power of this is 3. Next, now what we do is we now solve this out. So this then becomes equal to minus 1, as I raised to the power 4 is 1, so this will be 1, which is raised to the power minus 7, and this is multiplied with minus I, whose whole power is 3. Right? So this thus becomes equal to minus 1, and as 1 raised to any power is going to become equal to 1, right? Thus we'll be left out with minus I, so this will be minus 1 minus I, which is whole raised to the power 3, right? Now children, here we can take minus sign common outside, and minus into minus is going to become equal to minus, as such we'll keep minus outside, and then we'll call in writing the cube of this. So do remember here that if you talk about some a plus b, which is raised to the power 3, then that becomes equal to a cube plus 3a square b plus 3ab square plus b cube, and this is what we're going to do here. So as such, this will then become equal to minus sign taken outside. We have 1 plus I, which is left inside, and the whole power of this is 3. So for the children, this is then going to become equal to 1 cube, right? Plus we have 3 times of 1 square times of I, plus we have 3 times of 1 times of I square, plus we have I cube, right? Now children, further expanding this is going to become equal to minus times, or 1 cube will remain to be 1. Then we have plus 3 times of 1 square will be 1. So 3 into 1 is 3 into I. So that will be plus 3I, right? And then further we have added to this 3 times of 1, which will be 3. I square is minus 1. As such, it will become equal to minus 3. And then we have plus I cube, which then becomes equal to minus I, as I cube is equal to minus I, right? Next now children, we have to simplify this. We find that 1 and minus 3 are like terms. As such, it becomes equal to minus 2, right? And then further we have 3I minus I, which will become equal to plus 2I. And further, when we multiply the minus sign inside, we will get to our final answer, which will become 2 minus 2I, and that children is the final answer. So I'll just quickly discuss this all over. In the question, you've been given to simplify and evaluate I raised to the power 18, to which is added 1 upon I raised to the power 25 whole raised to the power 3. So here children, we have looked up earlier what the powers of I are. If we have I, obviously that's I raised to the power 1. If we talk about I square, that will become equal to minus 1. I cube is minus I, and I raised to the power 4 is 1. So further, when we have to solve this, we talk about I raised to the power 18. We require to break this up in terms of a power of 4 which is lesser than the power which is given to you. So as such, here we get to see that we can write this as I raised to the power 16 plus 2. Now I raised to the power 16, we know that it is a multiple of 4, can be written as I raised to the power 16, right, into I square. Now I raised to the power 16 can be written as I raised to the power 4 whole raised to the power 4, because a raised to the power m whole raised to the power n will become equal to a raised to the power m into n. Now as this is 1, so this will be 1 raised to the power 4. It will be multiplied with I square, which is minus 1, right? To that is added I raised to the power minus 1, because any number when in the denominator brought to the numerator will become some a raised to the power minus 1. As such, this is going to become equal to I raised to the power minus 1, whose whole power is 25. Now here again, when we have a raised to the power m whole raised to the power n, it will become a raised to the power m into n. As such, this will become I raised to the power minus 25, right? Further solving it, whenever we have a negative power of I, then make it a higher multiple of I. Make it a higher power of I, which is a multiple of 4, and to that then add the number which you have subtracted. So minus 25 can be written as minus 25 minus 3, right, which will make it to be a multiple of 4, right, and then we can add to it 3. That is, here what have we done is we've written this I raised to the power minus 25 to be equal to I raised to the power minus 25 minus 3, thus making it a multiple of 4, and as we've subtracted 3, so we will add 3, right, and thus here we can say that this will become I raised to the power minus 28 plus 3, right. Now I raised to the power minus 28 can be written as I raised to the power 4 whole raised to the power minus 7, as I raised to the power 4 is 1, so this will become 1 raised to the power minus 7, right. Next now children, what will happen is if you talk about I cube, we know that that becomes equal to minus I, so 1 raised to any power will remain to be 1, and when multiplied with minus I, it will become minus I. Now here above we got the value of I raised to the power 18 to be equal to minus 1. So minus 1 now is going to be added to minus I, and the whole power of this is 3. Remember, if we talk about a plus b raised to the power 3, it becomes equal to a cube plus 3a square b plus 3ab square plus b cube. So here, before applying this formula, one thing more can be done, that is minus sign can be taken common outside, and thus quite a lot of commotion of which sign it is going to come will be reduced. So when we take this minus sign outside, it will become 1 plus I, which is whole raised to the power 3. Now further, we talk about this same formula applied, that is 1 cube plus 3 times of 1 square times of I plus 3 times of 1 times of I square plus I cube, right? Just applying this formula. Now 1 cube will remain to be 1, 3 times of 1 square will be 3 into 1, that is 3, multiplied with I will become equal to 3I. Further, 3 times of 1 times of I square, which is minus 1, will become equal to minus 3, and I cube becomes equal to minus I. Now 1 minus 3 will become equal to minus 2, 3I minus I will become equal to 2I. So as there is a minus sign outside, it will be multiplied inside to make it 2 minus 2I, and that children is going to become the final answer. So is everybody clear about this? Ratnesh, Rajneesh, everybody clear? So that is all from my side in this class. I hope to meet you people more in the link which is there at the end of this lecture. You will get to see that there is a link with the help of which you can learn the whole of complex numbers with ease, right? Moreover, if you have any doubt, you can write in my email ID, which is saurabhkumardut@gmail.com. Do tell in comments which is the step which you found to be most tough and where is something that you got to learn here, right? And I'm sure in the next lecture we'll be studying a little more about complex numbers, which will make this complex numbers a little less complex. So bye children, have a nice time. Bye.